boy, the presidents are happy. The faculty is happy. That isn't my point at all. I'm asking you, what did you, as a legislature, do for Steve? And this question came up. It came up with calls that I had with two individuals that I respect a lot from the other side of the aisle. I had it on TV the other night with John Dorso, former majority leader. And he made a point that I couldn't get out of my head, and then I had it in another conversation I had with an old Republican Senate staffer that is just as honest as the day is long when it comes to policy. And his point to me was this. He said, Joel, you're telling me, John Dorso's point was this, you're telling me that all the money they put in to higher education, they couldn't freeze tuition? You're telling me with all of the money they poured into higher education, they couldn't freeze tuition? How do you answer that? What did they do immediately following the legislative session? What was the first thing higher education did after they got buckets of money thrown at them? They raised tuition. They did. Folks, they did. Now let's go back to Steve. Steve, your son's going to pay higher tuition. There. That's what the North Dakota Legislature ensured would happen to you. They're not going to blame themselves. They're going to blame the campuses. They're going to blame the state board. Now let me throw another one at you. I had, with the call with the old Senate staffer, he looked at me and he said, Joel, you're telling me that with all the money we're throwing around this state, we couldn't buy student loans down at the Bank of North Dakota a couple points? I had no answer for him because he's right. Why, as a legislature, couldn't you tell the Bank of North Dakota that whatever you're paying in terms of interest, we're going to buy it down a couple points? You don't need to make the amount of money you're making. The state's flush with money. We're going to buy it down a couple points. And trust me, we won't judge you on how you administer the Bank of North Dakota and say, gee, you don't have the record profits coming in the way you do anymore, because we'll understand we're the ones that forced you to buy that interest rate down for those students in state a couple points. Why couldn't they have done that? Those are two incredibly easy things that you could have done for Steve and for Steve's son. And you didn't do it. And so when they start writing all these letters telling you what a great job they did, how it was an amazing and a record-setting legislature, and how the governor did his job, and the lieutenant governor did his job, and how the legislature and the majority did their job, just remember Steve, and remember Steve's son heading off to college, and ask yourself if he came out of this legislature as well as what he could have came out of this legislature. And I think you know what the answer is going to be. Somebody make an argument against those two proposals that were given to me by Republicans, a tuition freeze and the buying down of a couple points on that student loan at a time when the state could have done it. That could have been done in a bipartisan fashion, and it didn't get done. So when people like me say there was no game plan this session, it was completely a reactionary session where the far right got to preach their whatever values they wanted to thrust upon everybody, and the far left just sat back trying to point out, but they didn't have the numbers to get it done. And here you sit. Here you sit.